This fist was first to belong to a heavyweight champion under Marquis of Queensberry rules. John L. Sullivan, most popular fighter who ever lived, reigned supreme until another fist, that of James J. Corbett, felled the Boston strong boy at last. The new champ was starred in one of the very first motion pictures. When the crank was turned, a roll of photographs inside fell into place, and the fabulous Corbett came miraculously alive, fighting an exhibition bout with an obscure opponent named Peter Tunney. That's Gentleman Jim at right with a bushy haircut in the 1890s bikini. The hand cranks on. Corbett didn't take this match too seriously, but the film he made enables us 60 years later to view Gentleman Jim in his prime. Corbett's conqueror was Bob Fitzsimmons. The lanky Fitz, who fought 35 years, held the crown for just one fight. Curly-haired James J. Jeffries knocked Fitzsimmons out at Coney Island in 1899. Here's Jeffries at age 45 in 1919. And here's Jeffries as a genial fight promoter in 1945. No longer curly-haired, his championship long decades in the past. Jeffries at 70 taught his boxing skills to eager neighborhood youngsters and tended his garden in the warm California sunshine until the final curtain, March 3rd, 1953. Whirling into prominence, controversial champion Marvin Hart claimed Jeffries had awarded him the title as winner of the Hart-Root fight. Tommy Burns defeated Hart for the championship, which Jeffries denied having given away. Jack Johnson settled the argument by defeating both Burns and Jeffries. This husky Texan, who has been rated by many eminent boxing authorities as the greatest heavyweight of them all, held the world title for 5 years. Johnson's end as champion came after 26 rounds under the blows of a 6'7" Goliath named Jess Willard. Here, the gigantic and good-natured Jess does furious battle with a gang of ghosts while preparing in 1919 for what appeared to be an easy defense of his crown. Willard was 5 inches taller and 60 pounds heavier than his opponent-to-be, a tough young man called Jack Dempsey. These are the first motion pictures ever made of the most ferocious battler the ring has known. Hard, handsome, with whipcord muscles, Dempsey trained fiercely. A few short years before, he had been a tramp, nothing more than a hobo, roving the tough towns of the West. It was difficult keeping him in sparring partners, for he ripped into them without mercy, using the bobbing, weaving style with which he cut down Willard in a one-sided slaughter to become heavyweight champion of the world. A tremendous mob jams Jersey City. The date, July 2nd, 1921. The occasion, the Dempsey Carpentier fight. The birth of big-time boxing. History's first $1 million gate. Notice the sign, $20 to $40 section. Big prices in a day when 25 cents could buy a full-course dinner. But the prices didn't keep the crowd away. 80,000 people filled every inch of Boyle's 30 acres. This sea of fans saw the champion Dempsey lick in 4 rounds the popular and valiant Carpentier. Crowds came a-running wherever Dempsey went. Fans mobbed him, tore at his clothing. His fame was as great as that of the president, for these were the Roaring Twenties, America's golden age of sports. The Mauler from Manassas, Colorado, fought 148 fights in his ring career and won 108 of them by knockouts. He was as gentle and modest outside the ring as he was brutal and ruthless within. But even the champion wasn't invincible. We are watching one of his worst beatings at the hands of a rising young pugilist in a sailor suit. In the mid-20s, Dempsey went to Hollywood. He now applied lipstick and eye makeup to the face he used to soak in brine to toughen the skin against opponents' blows. The Manassas Mauler displayed a graceful, free and easy style before the cameras. The rough ex-hobo had come far from the days of poverty, of riding the rails, of battling for a meal and a place to sleep. Back in New York, Dempsey showed off his new movie star bride, Estelle Taylor. The lithe killer of old was gone. The new Jack Dempsey could even be playful in the ring. He was no longer a desperate, hungry, instinctive fighter, and it was perhaps this, in the end, that cost him the championship. Here is the man in review in 7 stages of his career. At 24, the challenger. At 27, the champion. At 31, beaten by Tunney. At 32, beaten by Tunney again. At 36, he tries a comeback. At 49, greeting an old conqueror. At 55, Dempsey, greatest of all. Now an extra in our parade of champions, Georges Carpentier. The idol of France never won the heavyweight crown, but he was so colorful and popular that he can't be overlooked. Upon his arrival in New York, fans stormed around his taxi. Though a fine boxer, Carpentier's science was no match for Dempsey's brute force, and he never fully recovered from that shattering defeat. The gay Frenchman, however, fitted easily into the jazz age, and to the flappers of that period who scorned the roughneck Dempsey, he remained a hero to the last. Behind the book is Gene Tunney, who with equal ease could recite Shakespeare or hammer an opponent to the canvas. Gene could milk cows, too, though his method was unorthodox. Calm, intelligent, methodical, with unlimited determination, Tunney trained his way to the top. Hundreds of miles of road work, hour upon hour of exercise, helped build a splendidly muscled body. He was the perfect picture of the perfect heavyweight. Like Carpentier, Tunney was a boxer, a strategist, a fighting man of science. But unlike Carpentier, he also had weight and punch. In their meeting of July 1924 at New York, he won by a technical knockout over the Frenchman. The spotlight was now on the fighting Marine. The enthusiasm of the 20s for sporting greats engulfed Gene as it had Dempsey and Carpentier before him. When at New York's Polo Grounds he met Tommy Gibbons, the die was cast. Gibbons, a tough veteran of 95 fights, weighed 179 to Tunney's 181.5. Here's the fatal 12th round. Dempsey had beaten Gibbons in 1923, but only on points, for Tommy had stayed the entire 15 rounds. But now the man who had never been knocked out goes crashing down from a right to the jaw. Up at the count of 7, he again faces Tunney's fists. Here in slow motion is the decisive haymaker. Under this second right to the jaw, Gibbons crumbles to the canvas. It's all over by a clean knockout. Gibbons down, struggling vainly to rise, meant that Gene Tunney had done what Dempsey had failed to do and had won his chance at Dempsey's crown. Once more, the fighting Marine went carefully into training. All sports fans know the result, how he defeated Dempsey for the championship, and how he met the Manasseh Mauler the second time and defeated him again. The new champ wore his crown with dignity. He was an inspiration to youth, an advocate of clean living, of a healthy body through systematic exercise. Tunney was primarily a fencing fighter, however, and his popularity was limited. Fans longed for the killer Dempsey, though Gene had the love and respect of one little sparring partner at least. Gene Tunney's greatest tribute came from his native New York when he returned with the title. Dempsey's conqueror got the same all-out reception that Gertrude Ederle had received before him and that Lindbergh was later to receive. 2 years after, Tunney retired, the only heavyweight champion to leave the ring undefeated. From Germany came Max Schmeling to seek the title Tunney had vacated. In 2 years, this bashful immigrant was a confident heavyweight champion, the first man ever to win it on a foul. It happened when he met Jack Sharkey in the final of a tournament to determine who should wear the crown. After being dethroned when he refused to re-meet Sharkey, Schmeling at last consented to the bout and sharpened his aim. Defeated, Max poses with his manager, Joe Jacobs, author of the immortal remark, "I should have stood in bed." Schmeling, who won the title lying down, lost it standing up. The moon face filling the screen belongs to Jack Sharkey, the gob from Boston, the hard luck challenger. Here in 1927, Sharkey trains to battle Dempsey, the winner to meet champion Tunney. A low blow, Dempsey's, cost him that fight. Though a surly, tough customer in his profession, Sharkey was a kind and considerate family man. In 1930, he was again mowing down sparring partners, training for a crack at the title at last. A low blow, Sharkey's, cost him the Schmeling fight. When he met Schmeling a second time, it seemed he must win if only by the law of averages, and he did. He had his own bar by 1934, his championship already behind him. In Europe, the crowds were swirling around the base of a towering new heavyweight. Primo Carnera measured 6'9", 2 inches taller even than Willard. By 1930, Primo was running down American roads. Soon he was to score 22 straight victories on a tank tour ridiculed by many sports writers. When Dupreme touched his hands to his size number 22 feet, it was something to see. In his bouts with sparring partners, he looked like a giraffe fighting a dachshund. It was hard to take Dupreme seriously, and nobody got excited when he signed to fight the title holder Jack Sharkey at Long Island Bowl in 1933. But the lumbering, kindly Carnera had learned to punch, and he knocked out Sharkey in the 6th to win the World Championship. There then appeared a strong and skillful boxer with a powerful punch and one glaring fight fork. Again and again, anything for a gag, Max Baer proved he could be a killer, but he'd rather be a clown. Between jokes, like this how to strengthen your wrists routine, Max knocked Carnera down 12 times to win the heavyweight crown. His rubber legs trick while sparring was a newsreel man's delight. Like that Baer backhand. The big bad Baer was very funny, but it was an obscure fighter named Braddock who had the last laugh. Exit Maxie. This brings us to another extra, an outrageous gent named Tony Galindo, the battling bartender from New Jersey. When 2-ton Tony jumped rope, the earth trembled.
Union!
His press statements were always a joy to hear.
I can lick any heavyweight in the world. That goes for Joe Louis, Max Baer, and the rest of them. All in one night in the same ring.
Galindo in action was like a beer barrel equipped with flailing arms. While lovers of scientific boxing turned pale, he battered his opponents with roundhouse blows. Tony was most at home behind his bar. A brawler of the old school, he took on the best of his time, including the great Joe Louis. And when he lost, the only person genuinely surprised was Galindo himself. He never won a championship, but his battle cry will ring down the corridors of fistic history. I'll moiter the bomb. To James J. Braddock, the challenger to most unexpectedly win the heavyweight crown, it must have seemed like a dream when, at his modest Guttenberg, New Jersey home, he asked his kids,
"What do you call Daddy now?"
My daddy's a champ! My daddy's a champ!
It seemed like a dream to fight fans, too. Braddock, here showing his stuff, had suffered 29 losses and was considered washed up when he outpointed Baer for the title. They called him the Cinderella champion, and he basked in the sunshine of his victory for 2 years while contenders like Schmeling clamored to meet him. Up from a barren farm near Lexington, Alabama, and a squalid tenement in Detroit came Joe Louis of the poker face and the deadly punch. Here is the young Joe, age 20, in training shortly after turning professional in 1934. Joe differed from most fighters in that every blow he landed always hurt. As one sparring partner put it, any place he hits you, you think you're shot. And if he hits you right, you think you're dead. The Brown Bomber's rise was sensational. 18 knockouts in 22 bouts put him in the big time. Then he slaughtered Carnera in 6 rounds, Baer in 4, Sharkey in 3. Only Schmeling stopped him, and he avenged that later by crumbling Maxey in 2 minutes. For a lesson in how Lewis did it, watch. Lewis claimed he never hit an opponent as hard as he could. After beating Braddock to become youngest champion ever, he defended his title successfully, a record 25 times. The balding brown bomber, who at 36 returned from retirement, bore little resemblance to the Lewis of old. But fans will always remember Joe in his prime, a champ so good he ran out of challengers. Upon Lewis's first retirement, Ezzard Charles, here walloping the bag, gained recognition as champion by defeating the other top contender, Jersey Joe Walcott. In 1950, he made it definite by outpointing the aging bomber himself. A slow, careful, unspectacular boxer, Charles managed to beat everyone in sight. Then he signed to fight Walcott, whom he had defeated twice, and the third time cost him the crown. No one ever trod a rougher road to the title than Jersey Joe Walcott. His fighting career spanned 21 hard years. Poverty often forced him to quit the ring to become a longshoreman, a ditch digger, a garbage collector. 4 times he had a try at the crown, and 4 times it slipped away. Then suddenly on the 5th attempt, he was champion. His hometown of Camden, New Jersey gave him a hero's welcome. At 37, the oldest fighter to win the crown, Jersey Joe had proven that faith and determination can overcome great odds, and even hardened fight fans were touched. A year later, Walcott signed with challenger Rocky Marciano, and the title it had taken him 21 years to win was lost by a knockout in 13 rounds. Here, Rocky trains for the second Walcott fight, which his KO made one of the shortest in history. So with Marciano, a good-natured, rugged, paralyzing slugger, our parade of champions, for the time being at least, comes to an end. It was born in 1,000 rings, where amid smoke, sweat, and ammonia fumes, boxers, professional and amateur, strong and with wobbly legs, eternally fight it out. Here on brightly lit patches of canvas, amid the dark and roaring crowd, battlers rise and fall, come and go, lured by their dream of the crown. In our review of those who were champions, we have only scratched the surface. For the story of boxing is the story of a billion bouts, bad and good, dull and thrilling, sad and funny. Competitive sports are battles. This is the most personal and the most primitive. Here the fight is man-to-man with fists. Fame is the spur, and the struggle is for a line in the record books, for the right to add one more name to those of whom it will always be said, they were champions.